welcome back to Beauty Bee and welcome to my floor. Today we're going to be doing another swatch video looking at my collection of eyeshadow, in particular all of my white and silvery shades. These are definitely some of the colors that I find it very easy to convince myself to purchase because I do tend to prefer a white-based highlight. And I just think that silver is really pretty. It's a shade that I didn't have very much of in the past. And I think because of that, I've managed to convince myself that I still don't have very much. But I do. I am incorrect in that notion. I've done one of these videos in the past. It was on purple, but I probably need to redo it because honestly, the color in that video was absolutely awful, and I think I figured out my color now. Fingers crossed. So if that sounds interesting, I hope that you will not only stick around for the remainder of this video, but consider subscribing to this channel because I'm planning on doing the rest of the colors in the future. So with that, let's turn you around. Okay, let's get this going. I think I'm going to start with white. Why not? So the first white that I have is from the ColourPop The Child palette, which is the Baby Yoda one, and it is Precious Cargo, which is a Super Shock, and it is a white in the pan, but I find that it pulls very golden in a swatch. This is such a pretty shade. I find myself topping it over pretty much anything and using it in my inner corner quite a bit. The next white is from my Aura and Out palette. It is probably the truest white that I own, and honestly probably one of the truest whites that I've ever seen. This is the shade Young Love from Miss Bliss? No, Aura and Out. And I think I'm going to start with the matte whites over here, just so we can compare matte versus shimmer. I mean, such a light white, there is going to be a little bit of chalkiness, but I can build it up. I can get this to look nice on my skin. And it looks like the camera's actually picking up on that, so that's good. The next one, yeah, let's go to this one next. This is stained a little bit, but originally this was a white with just a little bit of a purple sheen to it. This is another Super Shock, and these definitely pick up other colors quite easily. And because I do so much of my eyeshadow with my fingers, it's quite easy for them to get a little bit stained. However, I think you can see the sheen on that. These Super Shocks that are in the palettes I found are generally quite sheer, just really pretty iridescent toppers, and I love that. Such a big fan. Actually, don't think there's... Oh, there are two whites in here. I was incorrect. So this is Stone Cold Fox, and the two, well, I guess one white and one cream that we're going to be swatching are Dreamful and Luxe. Kind of surprised. Those actually do look somewhat different, at least to me in a swatch. I find that this one has just a hint more yellow in it, while this one is almost more blue. But overall, they're pretty darn similar. Okay, now we see if there's another surprise white in the Play It Jewel, and there is not. I didn't think so, but I really had no faith in my guess of whether or not there were whites and things. Another almost white is from this Maybelline City Mini palette. This was a white, and then I mixed it in with a little bit of a beige color. So I think that in comparison to everything else in this video, yeah, that's looking a little bit more light beige than anything. But still pretty. I still use it a lot. Actually trying to pan that shade this year. So I'm not going to argue with using a little bit more of it for this swatch video. I think that this is the last true eyeshadow. Well, no. 2 more eyeshadows to swatch. The first is another Super Shock. This is the shade Ice Dream, and this is actually one of their potted ones. And this is beautiful. It's really the same color as the one from the In a Trance palette, but you know, it's a color that I love. It's a color I find myself using again and again. And are you going to be able to see that? I think so. Ice Dream is more pink, whereas the one from In a Trance is a little bit more purple. So they're different, kind of, not really. I want them to be different, so let me live in my fantasy. And then the final white that I have is a very chunky, glittery white from Kiko Milano. This is one of their baked eyeshadow duos. And, I mean, that is white. That is the truest shimmery white we've seen so far. I think the one shade that could give it a run for its money is the one that we will swatch next, which is from Revolution. I will use my cheek products on my eyes regardless of whether they say they're eye safe or not. I can't say that I recommend that to others, but it's what I do, you know. You do you. If you're an adult, you can make your own choices, and if you're not, ask your mom if you can do it. So, honestly, I think they're pretty similar levels of white, but this one is the Kiko one's a little bit chunkier, and the Makeup Revolution one is a little bit smoother and a little bit more full color. However, on the cheeks, this definitely does read as glittery. Do I have more? Oh, I completely forgot that I have shades in my Tarte palette. But let's finish with the highlighters. The next one will be the Hello Halo from Wet n Wild. This is one of their Mega Glow liquid illuminators. Is that what they call these? Liquid highlighters. And it's another white with purple. You'll see a theme developing. Told you, I am a sucker for these kinds of shades. And the next one's gonna be the same thing. It's from my Mega Glow highlighting palette. And this is another white with purple. It's just such a flattering shade and such an interesting shade. And I see it and I can't resist. I feel like this video is as much enabling me as holding myself accountable and convincing myself that I don't need more white purple, more whites or more silvers, because I'm looking at especially this stretch, I'm just like, ooh, pretty. Yeah. I really love white eyeshadow. Maybe I'm the only one who absolutely loves it, but I think it's beautiful. And now we get to the really fun stuff, which is in my, this magnetic palette. So I have one matte eyeshadow. It's from Pacifica. It's from their Nude Pink palette, I think is what it's called. I would not recommend it. I found that it kind of fell apart, but it's an okay off-white. Nothing to write home about. Next up, we have Pinup from Tarte, which is a beautiful white with some gold sheen to it. I use this all the time. And I talk about this all the time. So if you've been on my channel before, you might be getting annoyed with this shade, but it's beautiful, it's perfect. It's this perfect pearl shade. I just love it. It has this almost rose gold sheen to it. Just stunning. And then I recently purchased 2 Luxie highlighters, and I will and have used both of them on my eyes. This is White Noise, and this is Stiletto. I will swatch them out so that you can see the difference between them. I don't think it's super obvious in the pan, but White Noise is here. And then we have, let me clean off my fingers. Here we have Stiletto. So in a swatch, Stiletto almost doesn't even look white. It looks very yellow, while White Noise is white with a little bit of gold and pink to it. I think the closest thing I have to White Noise is probably that Tarte shade, though the Tarte is definitely has a little bit more pink to it and is a smoother, prettier formula. So here we have all of my white shades, and I'm in love. I don't need any more, but I do love these. Maybe I could get one that's white with like a blue sheen. That's not the point of this video. Anyway, before I convince myself that I need any more white eyeshadow, let's just admire these for a moment. I'll move my arm a bit so you can see the shine, and then we will move on to silvers. Okay, I have a freshly makeup wiped arm, so you know that these silver swatches are really going to pop. And I think I'm going to start with the 5 that I have in my singles. So this is a shade from Wet n Wild. This is probably the most borderline silver that I have in this video. This is like a really deep gray, but because it is somewhat metallic, I've put it in here. Actually, you know what? I don't think that this is from Wet n Wild. I think that this is an old NYX shade. I think this is from their Nouveau Chic palette. Love that one. Next up, we have a Luxie shade, and this is the shade Mint Chip. So in the pan, it looks like a greeny silver, and in the swatch, I feel like you lose a little bit of that silveryness, but I'm seeing quite a bit of pink in the swatch. It's very duochromatic. I'm not sure what exactly you're seeing because I can't really see the monitor very well. Hopefully, you're seeing a little bit of green, a little bit of pink, and a little bit of silver. It's really pretty. Next up, I believe this is the shade Beskar from the ColourPop The Mandalorian palette. This is not actually a single in my collection, but it was already pulled into a BYOP, so we're rolling with it. And it is a very light, very pretty silver. I've found myself using this one so much. I've only had the Mandalorian palette for a couple of weeks, so, you know, in the big scheme of things, I haven't used it that much, but it's a shade that I find myself reaching for again and again. Just enough warmth to it that it doesn't feel cold or too early 2000s the way silver can sometimes read. Very pretty. Next up, we have On a Whimsy from ColourPop, which is the silver from the line. This is like a Diet Coke can silver. I mean, it is stunning, it's smooth, it's super, super pigmented, just gorgeous. And then finally, as far as my singles go, I have the shade from the e.l.f. 70s Feels palette. This has a little bit of almost periwinkle to it. Again, really pretty shade. I'm gonna go over that swatch again. It actually doesn't swatch too bad, but in comparison to on a Whimsy, it just looks so lackluster, but it is a very pretty purpley silver. This is probably one of my favorite types of silver because I find it a little bit more approachable. While on a Whimsy is gorgeous, it's stunning, it's also kind of hard to build a look around. But silver introduced into a blue or a purple or a green, I love that kind of shade. I think that all the other silvers I have are from ColourPop, so the first two that we're going to talk about, here is where Beskar Steel was. The other two I'm going to talk about in this video are Imperial Credit, and then I think Clan of Two, I wouldn't really classify as a true silver, but I think it's worth showing in this video. So here is Clan of Two, and you can see in the swatch that it's really more of a blue-brown duochrome, sort of like a MAC Club or blue-brown. But Imperial Credits is that deeper, more platinum silver, which I adore. Again, such a pretty shade. This is such a good little palette. I am super impressed with it. I love the color scheme. It has two of the prettiest silvery shades. I'm just so impressed. And it's The Mandalorian. I don't have anything super insightful to say with that, just I'm really happy with it. And then from Play It Jewel, we have really a pretty similar situation where there's really only one shade that I would even think might be silver, and I'm pretty sure that this one doesn't show up as silver either. This is the shade Fractal, and this is another duochrome. Yeah, you can see in the swatch that that looks like a very glowy blue-purple duochrome, maybe? I don't know. It's kind of a hard shade to nail down, but it's very, very pretty. Not silver, though. And then finally, we have Stone Cold Fox, which for being a cool-toned neutral palette really has almost no shades that I would consider silver. I think the two that I could see or I guess maybe three, that I could see someone considering as silver are obviously Magnetic Moon, which I think might actually be, I feel like that might actually be just on a Whimsy repackaged. Maybe it has a hint more purple to it, but they're pretty darn close. And they do have that same super silky gliding formula. The other two would be Sediment to Be, which I think is more of a taupe, and certainly in this lineup looks like more of a taupe. And then I Dig It, which is a cool gold in my eyes. Yeah, I don't think that against this lineup it looks very silver at all. But again, super, super pretty. And I will say that I don't tend to love straight silvers as much as I thought I did when I started this video. There are definitely shades in this lineup that I love, but I think some of my favorite silvery shades are really ones that I would classify more as blues or greens or as purples with quite a bit of silver thrown in. However, again, beautiful, really like these shades. I think they're really fun to play with. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy with this lineup. I don't need any more silvers, and I definitely don't need any more whites. So I think that this video has successfully convinced me of that. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know which color you would like to see next in this series, and I hope you will check back for it.